You are standing in a narrow corridor of the royal palace. The walls are draped in tapestries that swallow sound, but you can still hear your own heartbeat pounding in your ears. A woman in black velvet approaches. Her face is expressionless, her steps measured. Behind her trail, two guards with halberds tipped in steel, polished to a mirror shine. She stops in front of you. "Her Majesty has called for you," she says. Your stomach twists. You don't know why you've been summoned. You don't know what she wants. But you do know this. In the court of Queen Elizabeth Third, being a young, unmarried girl was not a blessing. It was a test. And the Queen held the power to shape your life, control your body, decide your future, or end your reputation with a single breath. What I'm about to show you is the part of Tudor history they never teach in school. The system of surveillance, obedience rituals, and purity examinations that governed the Virgin Queen's ladies. Documented by ambassadors, written in coded letters, hinted in scandal sheets of the time, and supported by the palace architecture itself. If you stay until the end, you'll never see Queen Elizabeth the same way again. Hollywood lied about Elizabeth Furwern. They gave you the proud monarch, the steely ruler, the brilliant strategist. But they didn't show you the world she built behind closed doors, a world where young noblewomen weren't simply courtiers. They were her property, her political tools, her watchdogs, and sometimes her victims. Elizabeth's virginity wasn't just personal, it was political. It was her brand, her weapon, her banner against Catholic Europe. And to maintain that image, she demanded something extraordinary from the women closest to her. She demanded control over their purity, their movements, their thoughts, their marriages, their entire lives. Let's step into the royal household. Elizabeth's court was not like others in Europe. It wasn't relaxed, it wasn't glamorous. It was a fortress of surveillance. Every corridor had eyes, every room had ears. And the Queen's ladies, always young, always unmarried, were kept under rules so strict that foreign ambassadors wrote about them with shock. The French ambassador de Foix wrote, "No maiden enters her service unless she be examined for virtue, and no maiden leaves without Her Majesty's leave." Examined, managed, monitored, not metaphorically, literally. Before we go deeper, take a moment and look at the like button. If you believe history shouldn't be sanitized, that the truth matters even when it's uncomfortable, hit that button and tell me where you're watching from. Because what comes next isn't about romance, it's about control. Now let's talk about the ladies of the Privy Chamber. These weren't ordinary attendants. They lived inside Elizabeth's most private rooms. They dressed her, washed her, prepared her cosmetics, recorded her moods, and performed rituals meant to reinforce her image as the untouchable Virgin Queen. To join their ranks, a girl had to pass 3 terrifying tests. 1. Purity examination. Elizabeth demanded maidens of spotless reputation. If there was the faintest rumor of impropriety, a flirtation, a hidden letter, a midnight conversation, she ordered her closest women to investigate. More than one noble family recorded the shame of having their daughters interrogated to prove their virtue. Ambassador Guzman de Silva wrote bitterly, "She is more a jailer than a queen to the young women in her charge." 2. Loyalty oath. Girls entering Elizabeth's service swore an oath that bound them to secrecy, obedience, silence, lifelong protection of the Queen's image. Breaking this oath wasn't disobedience, it was treason. 3. Removal from family influence. Families were often forbidden from frequent visits. Girls became part of the Queen's world, and only her world. Elizabeth demanded their minds remain loyal only to her. Now comes the darkest part of this system. Elizabeth weaponized the girl's virginity as a political safeguard. She believed that if her ladies stayed unmarried and pure, they couldn't form alliances against her. They couldn't be used as pawns by foreign factions. They couldn't distract men she wished to control. They couldn't overshadow her own image. So she enforced rules. Foreign ambassadors called the Queen's chastity locks. Ladies could not marry without her permission, entertain suitors, exchange letters with men, meet alone with courtiers, even walk in gardens without supervision. One diplomat wrote, "Her Majesty keeps her maidens as in a cloister, yet commands their presence to display her power." They were trophies, symbols, living proof of Elizabeth's purity cult. But they were also prisoners. Let's talk about what happened when a girl disobeyed. When a lady was caught accepting attention from a man, even innocent admiration, Elizabeth's reaction was immediate and merciless. She had women, stripped of their titles, dragged from court, locked in remote houses, interrogated by her spy master, and in some cases, publicly humiliated. The most infamous case was Catherine Grey, a young noblewoman whose secret marriage enraged the Queen. Elizabeth ordered her imprisoned, separated from her husband, and her children taken from her arms because she dared to love without permission. This wasn't jealousy. This was policy. But here's the most chilling part. Elizabeth didn't just demand virtue. She demanded witnesses. Her ladies were required to be physically present during her dressing, her undressing, her makeup rituals, her nighttime prayers, moments of vulnerability, moments of sickness, moments of fury. Not because she trusted them, but because she could control them. They saw her as human, and that made their obedience absolute. Foreign envoys wrote in shock, "Her ladies are never absent from her person. They sleep beside her chamber door. They are bound to her day and night." Bound, not metaphorically, bound by duty, bound by fear, bound by the unspoken knowledge that their fate depended entirely on the Queen's mood. But what surprised foreign courts most wasn't Elizabeth's control over the girls. It was how she used them. They were instruments of diplomacy, symbols of her own purity, spies against ambitious courtiers, warnings to foreign suitors, ornaments for display during ceremonies. Elizabeth choreographed them like pieces on a chessboard. Ambassador Throckmorton wrote, "Never have I seen a queen so jealous of her maidens' affections, nor so eager to shape them as she shapes policy." To Elizabeth, purity wasn't morality. It was power. Control the girls, control the rumors, control the image, control the men, control the kingdom. And yet, when Elizabeth died in 1603, something strange happened. Her personal ladies, the ones who survived her discipline, her moods, her rage, wept uncontrollably. Some collapsed. Some refused to leave her body. Some locked themselves in her rooms for hours. Because after all the humiliation, after all the fear, after all the rules, Elizabeth had become their entire world. Every thought, every breath, every hour of their lives belonged to her. And without her, they didn't know who they were anymore. Her control wasn't just political. It was psychological. A monarchy built not on armies or gold, but on the absolute devotion of the girls she shaped and broke. If this revealed a side of Tudor history you've never heard before, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're going to keep uncovering the stories the past tried to bury. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next investigation into the darkest corners of history.